San Diego. That's where she was resigned, living there for a good 30 years before we moved her back home to Kentucky to be with family to begin her chemo. She started it in San Diego, and then she finished and completed her chemo in Lexington, Kentucky, where I'm originally from, which is Louisville, Kentucky. So most of my family's out there in Lexington, some in Louisville. And she passed away July 20th, 2018. I'm still in love of her. My mom was like my best friend. She was my biggest cheerleader. My mom was an inspiration to me. You know, she was the one who helped me start in this music industry since I was a little girl, and she's always supported me throughout my music career. When I got this wonderful track by Young Banger, he was a phenomenal musical composer. He wrote that music piece, and him and I, we worked together, and he sent the track to me, and the track was phenomenal. I knew it was a hit just listening to the track itself. I remember playing it for my partners, Demetrius Guidry and Rodney Cruz. They both loved the track. And the first thing that comes to me when I write songs is, you know, the track definitely has to really hit me and mean something to me, to move my heart, move my thoughts, move my mind. And all of a sudden the lyrics and the melody came to me, you know, and I knew I wanted to write the song about my mom. And so this song, Missing You, because I miss her. I still miss her a lot now. And I wanted to make the song an anthem for not just for her alone, but for many of those who can relate to this song. And that's where the song came about, you know, after I completed it. It was very difficult to record in the studio because of the emotions I had thinking about her passing away. I remember singing at her funeral. My mom told me before she passed away, I want you to sing at my funeral. And yeah, at that time I was like, oh, Mom, don't talk about death. I didn't want to hear it, you know, but she's like, well, we got to talk about it because we never know when it's my time, she said. But that's what I want. And that was her wish, and I gave her her wish to sing at her funeral. And so that's where the song came about. And
I imagine that had to be one of the hardest things that you ever had to sing, because like I said, you've had a long musical career, but I imagine singing something that means so much to you, because like I said, I know the importance of moms. I'm very close to my own mom and everything. I talk to her regularly, even at 56, you know. I'm not going to lie, sometimes even at 56 and she's 76, you still need help sometimes. So if I need help, sometimes whether it's financial or even advice help, Mom is one of the first people that I reach out to, and I reach out to some other folks as well. Of course, I reach out to Dad, but definitely Mom is on that list of people that I reach out to. So I know how important moms are even as you get older. So I couldn't even imagine, like I said, I'm fortunate that both my parents are still living, but if they pass before I do, I can't even imagine being able to stand up and speak about what they mean to me and not breaking up. And you had to sing in front of her funeral because it was her request. So I just imagine that was probably some very difficult times for you, and I imagine that you really had to dig deep in order to even get to the point that you could do it. Angel?
Hello?
Yeah, I was saying, so I imagine that you really had to dig deep in order to even be able to sing at the funeral.
Oh, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry, the phone just went dead. You were gone for me.
No, I was just saying that I can't imagine how hard it would for you to do that song, just because, just for myself, I know that would be very difficult for me. So I can only imagine what it was like to sing at your own mom's funeral, but that was her request. So I imagine that you just had to do it because you had no choice.
Right. It was hard, but I have nothing but good memories, most of all, about my mom. And I carry her always in my heart. And carry her legacy, because my mom was a writer, and she has 3 books she had published, and her legacy lives on. And I just want to keep her, you know, always talking about her in every interview I have, and everywhere I go, to always uplift my mom and just praise God for the years he's given me her.
Right. What kind of books did she write?
My mom, her book is called Conflicting Spirits, and she was writing series of those books. So the first book was called Conflicting Spirits. Her second book followed through that was Conflicting Spirits, Penetrating the Darkness, and then it's kind of a fiction book, but a Christian book in relating to a story tell of a family who lives in this evil town, small town, and all kind of ugly things happened, and each individual have their own battles with their relationship with God and just a lot of conflicts and so on. It's a really deep book, but it is on Amazon and on many other bookstores online. And so, she wrote that book, and she did 3 series from the same title. And I had recorded a song called Conflicting Spirits for her book that I released back in 2006 on CD Baby called Conflicting Spirits. So,
Wow. And both you and Rodney earlier were talking about just the way that the industry is now, and I'm curious to hear about both you as well as Phil, the blues singers that I've got on the line and everything, because you're right. So much of the radio is being run by basically 3 or 4 primary companies, whether that's Live Nation, whether that's Clear Channel, whether that's whoever. But that makes it harder for the independent artist or an artist that, I guess, in a field like blues or R&B or gospel even. So I was just wondering, how are you able to cope with this kind of trend that's going on in the industry? Because you're right, I do see more and more people that are going the independent route because they don't want to put up with the corporations and everything. The bad part of that is that there are newer radio stations, like there's a low-power radio station that I'm also part of, and, of course, there's podcasts that gives you an opportunity to put your music out there. But a lot of times if you're trying to get it on the commercial side, I can be in San Diego and I can be here in Durham, and I can guarantee you that I'll probably hear the same musicians at both locations at almost the same time.
Right. I say the 3 things, and I do want to give my other partner, Demetrius, something to say too. But I think the blessing of having social media is having like your podcast, Blog Talk Radio, and or any other musical sites such as SoundCloud or Reverb Nation or any of these other independent sites that music is on. There's so many, I can't even name them all, where artists are able to now get their music heard, whereas before trying to get it on the radio was really a fight in itself. I know when I was with Boat Records, it was hard, but thank God at that time, there was a lot of stations that did pick up my single. She Was Never Her off that radio, so I had a lot of BS stations that pick it up. But today, we have, I think it's even more a blessing and more broader because there's so many people who do have their own internet radio podcast or Blog Talk Radio or whatever other radio station that allows independent artists to shine and get their music heard, and that's the blessing. And even though I know what you're saying is difficult to get it on these other stations, you try. If you have the money, you can pay for it. They say do pay order anymore. It's more called advertising, with them to get your music, but it does cost, some money if that be the case, if you have that to go that route. But there are artists that are breaking without radio, and right. People taking notice, and their music is being heard and broken and even charted on billboards without radio airplay, which is amazing because of social media.
Yeah, definitely. I want to hear from the other partner, too, what some of his views were as the way the music industry is going and what he sees as the role of these kind of independent labels like what y'all have at Atlas.
Well, I think you touched on it when you said that there's a few people who basically run everything. And if you go back to the time when you were young and listened to music, how has music changed since that time until you are where you are now? And everyone would agree that there's been drastic changes because in the music industry there has been no rules. It's an open playing field for anybody to step into and change it. And so what we see now is how that's changed based on the agendas of various people, groups, individuals, businesses that are online to so-called help people. They'll get your streams out there. They'll get you on radios. And so many independent artists struggle with who to trust and how they're going to go about advancing their career, because the music industry, in the hands of a few, has come up with a very unique way of taking success and giving it to a few, making the others think that their talent is not good enough, and it ends up discouraging a lot of people who have talent who would otherwise have an opportunity. So one of the reasons why we started Atlas Elite Entertainment was because we knew and found out early on, and through learning from the many years of experience that Angel has, that the best way in this day and age for you to do anything in the music industry is you have to work for ways of doing it yourself. So we started Atlas Elite Entertainment, and we started a record label. And Angel is one of our artists, and her daughter, Shardella, is one of our artists. Then we started a magazine, then started an award show, because we want to be able to call the shots the way that we think they should be, according to the way we think the game should really be. And although there's a lot of people who may not follow it, it always starts with us. In other words, we have to set the playing rules and the example for what our platform is. And hopefully, when people do business with us, they see that we're on the straight up and up, that we do not play games with people's money, that we do what we say we're going to do, we follow up, we answer emails, and that's how you build your brand. And so we are in that process of building our brand in the midst of an ever-changing music industry that will continue to change so long as it exists.
Definitely, and I appreciate those comments and the very profound comments that you made right there and everything. Phil, I was just wondering, how's your struggle been with terms of trying to get music and everything? Because you're a blues musician, and that's even harder to some degree because there's many blues labels, but they're oftentimes very small labels. They're not necessarily on the big chains and things of that nature. And then also I was curious from both Rodney and I didn't catch the other gentleman's name, but also was curious as to whether blues was even one of the genres that you covered. Because like I said, I know you do gospel, R&B, but I didn't know what other genres you covered. So it's a question first for Phil and then for the gentleman from Atlas Elite.
Well, you know, it's driving me crazy. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for about 40 years, and the changes, you know, is mainly in the technology and the social media. I think the social media stuff is great because, you know, people, you know, musicians, grassroots people, you know, they have access, and the social media, the internet, all that, it gives you access to the industry where you didn't have it before. You know, in the course of my plan, you know, for a while it was like a big priority to get on a label, and then people quit buying CDs, and then I thought, well, okay, so get them on, you know, like I don't know, iTunes and all that, and now people are going back to you know, to wax, to LPs is the new fad, and so like, I mean, here's all of me. I give up. You know, just when I think I've started to figure out the next new thing, you know, these retro people are going back and they want the actually the wax record. You know, but I've been fortunate. You know, I don't have much to complain about. I mean, my experience with the recording industry is just to get as much up front as I can, and then you know, the royal payments are kind of few and far between, and I sold my product at my performances, and you know, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say I'm gonna have to cut out here in a minute.
No problem. And we'll definitely remind folks just one more time where that performance is and the time in Raleigh on Saturday. and then we'll continue the conversation with Angel and her partners.
Okay.